Thank you for joining us for our Process Scheduler training video. My name is Nathalie, and today I will take you through a detailed step-by-step presentation on how to set up Process Scheduler for Sage 300. But first, briefly, is Process Scheduler the right product for you? What can it do for you? Do you rely on operations staff to kick off manually recurring processes and to ensure they complete successfully? Is your business exposed to human error, performance degradation, resource conflicts, and staff downtime due to critical processes being manually executed during business hours? Would you appreciate the convenience and peace of mind of having key processes automatically scheduled, the efficiency of having them run unattended during off-peak hours while still being notified if something goes wrong? Process Scheduler can let you automate important repetitive tasks within one or multiple Sage 300 companies. For example, data integrity, running DN, posting various batches. So it's one less thing to worry about and peace of mind. You can set up key processes to run unattended. We will look at a detailed example for data integrity and the various options for notifications, how to save time and manage by exception effectively. If there is an issue, you will be notified while detailed logs are being maintained. You can schedule the tasks to run off-peak hours, which ensures effective utilization of resources, and we'll go through the configuration steps required for this. Process Scheduler includes different levels of functionality depending on your need. Level 1 for data integrity, refreshing crystal reports through Report Runner, refreshing Info Explorer cubes, listing active modules. Level 2 includes all those levels plus the end and posting of various types of batches. Level 3, all the previous ones plus more advanced actions such as running custom processes, automate distribution of GL financial reports through Report Runner, opening and closing fiscal periods. So in this training video, we will first look at how to download and activate the module, review the licensing options, and set up the key configuration options within Process Scheduler. We will then set up a detailed data integrity schedule to run data integrity of all modules and one module at a time, and look at the different way Process Scheduler logs and records the data for such schedules. We will then set up a Windows Task Scheduler to run these Process Scheduler schedule, looking at user rights, viewing the results, and looking at how to log to assist with troubleshooting. We will then look at other examples of schedules, including level 1, 2, and level 3, and how to configure email messages for the best notification for these different types of schedules. Finally, we will look at how Process Scheduler integrates with other Orchid modules in terms of refreshing Info Explorer cubes, running Financial Report Runner for Crystal Reports, running GL Financial Reports Report Runner, and running extender scripts for custom alerts. First, we're going to look at downloading, installing, activating, and the initial configuration of Process Scheduler. So we will activate in Administrative Services. We'll check the licensing. As the level is included in the serial number, it is the same install for all levels of Process Scheduler. We will configure all the key options using the visual process flow, and that includes security in Administrative Services, the processing and the email tabs and the options, email messages, different Process Scheduler companies, and then creating directories if required for data integrity and other logs that Process Scheduler will do. So firstly, we're going to download the product from the Orchid website, choose the version that you're after, 18, 17, 16, etc. Go and choose Process Scheduler. It is the same install for all levels. The serial number and the activation code make the difference. So here I'm going to install the file that I actually have saved on my machine in the installation files just now for version 2019. Follow the prompts. Enter the serial number. As you can see, the 6th digit of the serial number is a 3. It means I'm actually installing level 3 of Process Scheduler. It would be a 1 for level 1 and a 2 for level 2. If you don't have your client's serial number, you can install with your NFR serial number. You will just need to put in your client's code as soon as you place the order and receive it. As with other Orchid modules, you can install with a 30-day grace period, or if you have an activation code, you can enter it at the time. In this case, I'm going to choose a 30-day grace period, select what I want to install, Installation is successful. License file is created. I'm now ready to activate Process Scheduler. The activation takes place in Administrative Services, like other Sage 300 module. One of the big differences with Process Scheduler is that it only needs to be activated in one master company, the one that will hold the schedules. If you only have one Sage 300 company, it's obviously the same company. But if you have multiple, you can choose one master company or create a company that will just hold Process Scheduler schedules and will then log on into all the companies that need scheduled tasks run on. In this case, I'm going to activate in sample company, choose Process Scheduler. Activation is successful. So now I can go in my Process Scheduler menu, in the setup area, check my license. I can see that I've got 3 for level 3. I haven't entered my activation code yet, but when I receive it, I will put it in here and save. And if I'm running a subscription, I've got my expiry date showing here. If you are upgrading from one level to another, you will need to enter a new serial number as well as a new activation code. Next thing we do once we've activated in that company is set up the security. Different security groups for Process Scheduler are as above. We've got Inquiry, which lets you view the log files, Setup and Processing, which will let you set up the options and the schedules, and the Email Setup, which is a special security group to configure the emails that you need to send Process Scheduler notifications. We have developed a visual process flow to assist with the setup of Process Scheduler. So one of the first things we suggest you do is go and assign visual process flow in Administrative Services for the users that will be setting up Process Scheduler. So now I've got visual process flow, which will guide me through the setup of Process Scheduler. Going back to our visual process flow, we've now activated Process Scheduler, set up security. We're now ready to go and configure the options. In Process Scheduler options, the first thing we're going to set up on the Processing tab, configure the logon details for the company that's going to hold all our schedules. If we only have one company, that's the one we're going to select here. In this case, I'm going to select Sample Company Limited Process Scheduler, which is the one holding all my schedules. I'm going to enter my logon details, and we generally recommend that you use a dedicated user to avoid issues with expiring and changing password. As a tip, if the password is changed, you will need to update these details to update the credentials in options. So when you run Process Scheduler from Task Scheduler, the program will connect to the company that is set up on Process Scheduler processing options and use this user ID and password to read the active schedules and go and run the schedules. When you change the active company, you get this message. You say yes to continue to make sure that Org PS1 is the active company. If you are upgrading or moving to a new server, you will generally need to re-enter those details, and you will get that message and you should say yes to continue. Next, we're going to configure the email. In most cases, Process Scheduler will be sending email notifications. If those are left blank, no emails can be sent. You cannot use Outlook to send the email, as mostly the schedules will be run unattended. Enter your SMTP server details as provided by your IT team. Depending on your SMTP configuration, you may need to choose an encryption method. If you are using a different port than the standard port, you may need to put your port number separated by colon. We suggest that you send a test email to make sure that it's all working fine. So if I click send here, it's going to send me an email or return an error if it's not working. So I've got that email send, and if I come to my inbox, I can see that a test email has been sent from Process Scheduler Communications at Sample Limited Company. Finally, a reminder that, like on all our modules, we've got the Updates tab, and you can click Check for updates to see if there are any product updates available, and you will see a list of all the new features and all fixes that are included in the new product updates, and then you can download from the website. We've now configured Process Scheduler options. Two more things we need to do before we can start setting up the schedules. First is enter the logon details for all the Sage 300 companies for which Process Scheduler is going to run some tasks. Note that even if you only have one company, you need to enter the logon details for that company, because Process Scheduler uses those logon details when running each step. So here we suggest that you use a dedicated user as well, and also that user needs to have rights to perform the tasks that you want Process Scheduler to run. So for example, if you need Process Scheduler to run a DN or post batches in a particular company, then that user needs to have those rights in Sage 300 Administrative Services. Finally, we need to configure some email templates so that Process Scheduler can send the notifications. To start with, we're just going to create a template that will be used in our data integrity schedule that we'll go through step by step. So here, I've got on the right-hand side some variables that I can use to include in my email body by just double-clicking. The next step, if I add this one, $details, it will include integrity log check. I can also copy this into my email subject. Now there are other variables that you can use in those email templates as per the F1 help, from your company name, from the schedule header, and from the details. We will look at this a bit more closely when we look at other schedule types in the next part of this training. I'm going to add this. And just a little practical tip: if you have set up some email messages in a test or training company that you want to bring into your live company, you can export them like you would any other Sage 300 record, export and import them into your live company. We've just seen how to activate, check the license, use the visual process flow to set up the basic security and configure options for Process Scheduler. If we're going to run some actions that need some directories, we create them on the network folder. Now we can start creating some schedules. We are going to look closely at the steps to create a schedule for data integrity, look at the options around schedule notifications, look at the difference between doing a task to check all modules in one step or one company, each module one at a time. We'll then view the results, show the emails received in the different scenarios, look at the audit log and see how we can keep a history of all the log files. We'll also look at how we can clear the log files. And we will then set up the task in task schedulers, running the OS integrity check program, discussing the user rights, the various Windows error codes, and how to create a log file to help troubleshoot. We have now completed the main configuration options for Process Scheduler, and we are ready to create some schedules. The first one we're going to look at in close details is to set up schedules to run data integrity for all modules and clear the data integrity logs. In this example, I want to send emails only if there are any errors. Obviously, if I select always, it will always send me an email when the schedule runs, and if I select don't send email, it will never send me an email. I'm going to select only if errors so that I can receive email if there is a change in the number of data integrity errors. Enter my email address, CC if appropriate, and then I'm going to go straight into the Detail F9 tab, as it is easier to view all the options that are relevant for the different types of tasks. In this case, I'm going to set up a schedule to check all modules' integrity in one go. The fields that are available to fill in, or that are required to fill in, depend on the action that you've selected. I want to send an email when there is an error only on change. That is, if there has been a change in the number of data integrity errors. That way, if I have some old errors that are not that easy to fix, I will only get notified if there are some new errors that are happening. I'm going to run on Orc PS1, And here in that finder, I've got access to all the companies that I have set up in my companies in process scheduler options. I don't want to fix the errors, and I want to save the log files in this directory, and I would like to have one directory per company. So I'm doing it for org ps1. I'm choosing org ps1 in the company there. And I can choose to send the full log or just a summary log. In this case, I'm going to send the full log. When there is an error, I want to go to the next step, which I'm going to call 5, and I want to send an email. I can select my email templates on error, then the description will say error running data integrity errors. If I'm successful, I still want to go to the next step, which is going to be clearing data integrity logs, but I don't want to send an email notification. And save this action, create a new one, which I'm going to call step number 5, and it is going to be clearing the data integrity logs. Send an email if there's an error. Do it for the same company, org ps. And I need to choose the number of days I'm going to keep my log file. So I'm going to say 15 days because I know there are backups if I need to go back further than that. And I'm going to select the path. On error, I want to send an email. And I've got a slightly different template for that. And on success, I want to stop because I'm not going to do the next step. If I accidentally start creating a new line and it defaults to check all modules integrity, I can hit escape to cancel the change in that row. So I've just created a simple schedule that will check all modules integrity, send me an error email if there are changes in the number of errors, and then go to clear the data integrity logs. I'm going to save this schedule and run it. When I'm trying to run the schedule, I can see here that I actually had an error telling me check all modules integrity steps has failed because the log folder doesn't exist. So obviously what I need to do in this case is come and create a folder called org ps1 in this integrity checks folder. So now I've created it, so I can close this log and run again. I've run the schedule. I can see that I've now got data integrity logs in a folder called org ps1, and I can open the file and view the log. I have also received an email with the results of the integrity checks that I've done. I can see all the content of the errors in there. And on my data integrity schedule, I can see that the last time it was run was at 4:20. It failed with 4 errors. Total number of errors was 54, and I've got the last log in here. I can double click on here and we'll open the last log file. Because I have chosen to check all modules integrity in one go, I'm only seeing the last log file, which in many cases is going to be the tax services log file. So that leads us to the alternative way that we can set up data integrity checks in Process Scheduler. It's a little bit longer to set up, but it gives you more flexibility in how you deal with each module and in the log file that you can view from Process Scheduler. The second option to set up Process Scheduler for data integrity is to create one action, one step per module that we have activated in the company. As before, we're going to choose to send an email only if there is an error, and I'm going to send it to the same person. And here, I can use a little process scheduler trick. Select my company, click the Go button. Process Scheduler will find all the modules that are activated in that company and create a row for each module that is active. If I click on the Detail tab, I can view more detail there. All I need to do is see if for that module I want to send an email or not, or only on change of errors. So I'm going to do for AP, only send it on change of error. The module is selected, and I can choose various options for that module in the integrity checker as if I was running that module's integrity checker manually. So I can choose to check those various options and or fix various options. Say yes to fixing error, select the log path for that company, choose to send the full log, and then on error I'm going to go to the next step and send an email. On success, I'm just going to go to the next step and not send an email. Do the same thing for the next module, which is going to be accounts receivable. Check what the options are. I want to fix them all. Select the log path for that company. I'm going to copy this so that I can paste it to the next actions. And keep going for all the modules. I've checked the configuration for each module, and I can quickly check in the grid that all my steps are okay from 2 to 13, 2 to 13. And on the final step, I'm not going to any other step. And now I can add this schedule and click Run. So when the task is completed, I can view the log in here, open the log, and look at all the details. I can also see that I've got more data integrity log files in this folder. And if I look at my emails, I have received a notification saying that table CSSEC has a data integrity issue, and that the PM one also has a data integrity issue, and a summary for this. Now if I come back to my data integrity, I can see that against each step I can view the log from here. So this one is telling me no errors for AP. This one has had some errors, and if I look here, double click, and I can see the detail of the errors. I can also look at the audit log to view the history of the log files that have been run. So this is the main advantage of setting it up one module at a time, is that you can view all the data integrity logs until you've cleared them. We now have a schedule, data integrity 1, that we want to run daily at 10 p.m. So to do that, we have to configure Windows Task Scheduler. I'm going to show you how to do that on the Windows 10 machine. It's very similar on different operating systems. So start Windows Task Scheduler and create a task. The description. Choose a user that will run that task. It's important to make sure that the user has access to Sage 300, is using the same drive mappings that have been used in some schedule to store the data integrity logs, or preferably use UNC path in your schedule so that you don't have any conflict between the user who's running the tasks and the path. The user needs to have access to the drives that are included in the schedule. So if I'm going to write data integrity logs to a particular folder, the user will need to have read and write access to that folder. And the user will also need read-write access to the Sage site folder in order to connect to the Sage 300 company. And preferably you would set up a network user with a password that doesn't expire. If you need to reset the password periodically because of your IT policies, then you will need to maintain the passwords in the task schedule as well. You should make sure that you select Run whether the user is logged on or not. On the Triggers tab, you're going to work out the schedule under which this task is going to run. So I want to run it weekly, and I want to run it every day except Sunday, and I want to run it at 10:57 p.m. because I know it's after my backup is done. The action that we're going to run is start a program, and the program we're running is ozintegritycheck.exe, which is in the folder where you have installed Sage 300, in a folder called Oz, XXA, so 66 for 2019, which I'm running on this machine, OZ 65A for 2018, etc. And the file I'm running is this one, OZ integrity check. And in the argument, I'm going to put the schedule name that I'm going to run. In this case, put in all caps. Data integrity 1 is the program, the schedule that I want to refresh. Say OK. Leave on the default for the other tabs. Click OK. I will be prompted to enter the password for the user that I've selected. And I've now got a task ready to run. I haven't run it yet, so I don't have a result in here. But if I click Run, we'll let Windows Task Scheduler run. So now the task has run from Task Scheduler, and I can see here on the last run result, it shows 0, which means it's been successful. And if I look at the help, I can see the various error codes that I may get in Windows Task Scheduler. If it shows me 65, it means it cannot open the session. 66, the schedule doesn't exist. 67, it's found the schedule, but it cannot connect to the database. Therefore, you should check the username and password in the companies. In some circumstances, you may need to create a log file when you're running, especially if the schedule is running from within Sage 300, but maybe not from Windows Task Scheduler. So to do that, follow the steps in the documentation, and under Action, I'm going to change that action to enter a log file in here, and we write log equals, going to check the path name for the logs. It was log and oz.txt. The folder needs to be created before we start. Do that. It's OK to save. I will be prompted to enter the password again every time I change the schedule. And if I click Run, I can see that I've got a text file created with a log of the action that is happening. And I've also got my usual email notification when the schedule runs successfully or not. And here I'm seeing there has been errors in that module for that data integrity check. Finally, it's important to note that if you're running OZ integrity check, the process scheduler exe in Task Scheduler on a machine where Sage 300 has not been fully installed, you need to do at least a workstation setup for process scheduler to be able to connect to Sage 300. A few notes there. If you have set up your email messages in a test company or in a sample company, you can come here and export all the email messages and re-import them into another company. And in Process Scheduler, you can have different email messages being sent, whether there's an error, whether there's a success in the step. So we suggest you use slightly different email subjects in body so that you can tailor the content of the notification, whether the process is successful or not. For example, here with data integrity, we're only sending an email if there has been a change in the number of integrity errors, so that your old errors don't get reported every day and you learn to ignore the notification. So you're only going to get a notification if the number of errors has changed. The variables you can use in the email messages depend on the step and the schedule and the action that you want in your process scheduler schedule. So for example, when you're checking disk space, you can put here the file path that you're checking the space for. Use these variables to compare the maximum, the available space, and your maximum that you're checking. If you're refreshing the cube will be attached to the email and the parameters will be added to your email templates if you put this variable $log path. So we've seen how to set up some data integrity schedules, detailed setup, checking all modules in one step or one module at a time. You can do that within one company or across multiple companies. We've looked at the results, the different emails received in the different scenarios, looked at the audit log, and noticed that if you spend a little bit of time to configure your data integrity check one step at a time, you can view a history of all the log files from within Process Scheduler. Finally, we've looked at Task Scheduler and how to create a task to run OS Integrity Check EXE, discussed user rights, the various response codes you get, errors or success, and how to create a log file. So now we're going to look at a few other examples. Firstly, some other level 1 tasks. How to run a product audit, how to check disk space, do a DP dump, and run a schedule that runs multiple schedules. Then we'll look at some sample level 2 tasks, primarily around day end and posting batches. And then we'll look at some level 3 tasks relating to loading and copying databases, GL consolidation, open close period, and custom programs. So we'll look at a few other level 1 tasks, starting with database dump. In this case, I've actually imported from my test company into my process scheduler company various schedules. That's quite a good tip if you're setting everything up in a development company or in a company in your office. You can export everything and then import into the live database the way you would any other Sage 300 records. So with the database dump, you basically choose that action, dump database. And as you can see, these are all the actions we have, from check all modules integrity all the way to run extender script. These are level 1 actions. So choose the dump. Again, I can choose to send an email on error or no email, choose my company, and choose a path for my dump. If I give it a file name .zip, then Process Scheduler will create a zip file with all the dump records. Otherwise, everything will go into a particular folder to dump into. And in my file name, I can use those variables, year, month, and day, etc. The important thing is to remember that you can use zip file to create just one file from a database dump. Chosen this email template, database dump, and if I look at it here, I've included the step where the error might have happened, the company name, what the action was, and the path. So this is information that's particularly relevant when you're doing database dump. Remember, you can use F1 help to actually find all the variables from the detailed steps. The ones on the right-hand side relate to the company that you're logged in and the schedule you're looking at. So you can repeat this for multiple companies that you might want to dump. Next one we're going to look at is a task that I've already scheduled, I've already set up to check the disk space. So this is pretty useful to run on your SQL server or on the server where the Sage 300 programs are installed. You choose your path and determine the minimum amount that you want on that server. So if it's less than 30 gig in this example, I'm going to go to the next step if I want to check another server or run another task, and then send an email. And my email here is showing me the name of the drive that I'm checking, the available disk space, P2, and less than P1. When I run this, I can see that in this case, my C data folder has got less than the minimum 30 gig, so I'm seeing that in the log. I've run it manually. I'm also seeing my email coming here showing me that information. Next, I'm going to create one called System Audit. So I'll send an email on change. System audit is useful to track all the modules and the version and the different PUs that are installed, and it's useful to schedule this one to run daily so that you will get a notification after something has been installed. So if nothing has changed, I will not get an email. When I run it manually, it will show me no change. If something has changed, I will get a list here of the modules that are installed and the product updates. So here I can see that I've upgraded Orchid Sample Company, from 6.5 to 6.6, and I've upgraded all the modules. Finally, another schedule that is useful is to run a schedule. So again, it's easier to look at it in the detail tab. So I'll do one line. My first step is going to be to run a schedule, and here I can choose any schedule that I've already installed. So let's say every day at 2 a.m. I want to run these three things. Check disk space. So a schedule to run schedule is useful if you only want to set up one task in Task Scheduler that will run multiple schedule at the same time, or the one after the other. So here I'm running the one to check disk space, the one to do the system audit, and the one to do a database dump. So I can run this every day, and I only need to schedule one task in Task Scheduler. Now let's look at some Level 2 processes. And Level 2 is mainly around running DN and posting system batches. So in this example, we've already set up a schedule called DN, which will do two things across three companies: run a DN and post all system batches if the DN has been successful in Org Ltd, and then do the same thing in Org PS1 and SAM Ltd. So to do this, as you can see on the next step on error and next step on success, they're different. So I run my DN. If it's successful, I'm going to step 5, which is to post all system batches. If not, I'm going to step 10, which is run the DN in the next company. So let's look at the details to see what we need to fill in to run the DN. And basically, we choose whether we send an error or not, and then select the company and choose the path where we're going to put the DN logs, and then what we do on success and on error. And then we can choose to post automatically some batches based on certain criteria. So subledgers only, or all system batches, all ready to post batches, by subledger, all of them. Post some IC transactions or some PJC transactions. So basically these are all level 2, and all those posting work the same way. You just choose the company. The important thing with the DN processes is to make sure that the user who's going to run these processes has sufficient rights to perform the tasks in the various company that you're selecting. And just a note, for example, when you're running the DN action, if any DN is triggered by a third-party module that subclasses IC DN, for example, Technisoft Service Manager, then that DN action will kick in when you run the ICDN from Process Scheduler. Finally, let's discuss some Level 3 actions. So Level 3 is more advanced actions, and we're going to start with looking at loading and copying databases. So when I want to load a database, I choose what company to load into and where my dump is based on. This would typically be useful to copy a live company onto a test or sandbox type of system every day or every week. Similarly with copying, you can choose which company you copy from and which company you copy to. Few other things that are useful with Level 3 is the ability to run programs or run AVB macros. So you write your own program or your own AVB, make sure it returns some error statuses that Process Scheduler can track so that we can record it in the log, and then use Process Scheduler to schedule those tasks. When you use Process Scheduler to run a custom program, it's important to know that you can pass the org ID, the user, and the password from the command line. So the org ID is the database ID of the company that's in the line above there, and the user and passwords are the connection details that are stored in process scheduler companies. So your program needs to accept those parameters, and then process scheduler can pass the parameters at runtime. This is particularly relevant because it means that your exe doesn't need to store the details in an ini file or anything like this. And it can be used more easily to replace custom AVB, which are generally not recommended if you're going to run them on the server unattended. And we have a few advanced GL options around opening fiscal periods, fiscal years. The latest ones involve closing the earliest open period and opening the next closed period. So this is basically letting you disconnect the opening and the closing of the period, which gives you more flexibility, and you could have a few periods open. If you we're now in August, if you have June and July open, this action will go and close June and open the next closed period, will go and open August for you if you haven't done that yet. Finally, we're going to look at Process Scheduler in conjunction with other Orchid modules, namely Info Explorer to refresh the cubes, Report Runner to refresh Crystal reports or GL financial reports with level 3, and Extender to automate some tasks and some alerts run through Extender scripts. Again, we're not going to set them up from scratch, but we're just going to look at the options that are required. So to run Info Explorer cubes, you create a new schedule, determine what notifications you want, and then looking at the detail for that action, refresh Info Explorer cube, I choose where my cube is, and if the cube has parameter like the next one there, I put the parameter and the value that I want to pass for that cube, and then who I'm going to email to and what email message I'm going to send. The message template here has the cube name and the parameters that I'm passing to that cube. If your cube requires a password to refresh, then you can pass the password in the parameter in here. If you have different cubes, you can set up an action, a step for each cube you want to refresh with different parameters or different people you want to send it to. You could have multiple schedules, one with your daily cubes that you want to refresh, one with the weekly cubes that you want to refresh. You will need to have Info Explorer installed on the server where Process Scheduler is run for this to be successful. If I want to automatically refresh reports that are included in Information Manager Reports Runner, Crystal Reports, I need Process Scheduler Level 1. And to do that, I need to use this action called Run Info Manager Report. And what this does is basically look at what is configured in the Report Runner, look at the next run date, and if the next run date is before the time that I'm actually running, it's going to run the report and apply the schedule that's defined in Report Runner to set the next run date. So if I run this one now, it will run this daily report, and because it's a daily, it will set the next run date to tomorrow. If I have a weekly schedule in Report Runner, when I run it today, it will set the next run date to next week. And again, I choose what notification I want on success and on error. I can refresh the reports across multiple companies. So here I've got 3 steps. First, running all these reports in Orc Ltd. Another one is Orc PS1. Next one is SAM Ltd. Report Runner Information Manager needs to be activated and configured in the companies when you're running that. And the user needs to have right to run Report Runner. Finally, with Process Scheduler Level 3 and Report Runner Financial Reports, I can schedule the sending of GL financial reports that have been configured in a Report Runner through Process Scheduler. I can see that when I choose the action Run Financial Report Group, I choose a company and I choose a report group. So the report group in Financial Report Runner, and you can see more detail of that in the Financial Report Runner training video that's on our website. is the highest level here, Department 100, which is made up of these different reports that I'm going to run with various parameters. I can choose my fiscal year and period for this particular run, either the current or the next or the previous for the financial year, and similarly for the fiscal period. I can choose to export to Excel or to text, have an email subject, email to, and configure the file path where I'm going to save the file and what name I want. So if I use the file name or the same name over and over again every time it's run, the files are going to be overrun. If I want to keep a snapshot of that, I can use the YYYMMDD to rename the file every year, so every year, every month, and every day, so that every time it runs, I've got a different name. And here I'm running report group for Department 100 with the previous fiscal year parameters and emailing it to Steve using the previous fiscal year parameter in the file name. Excel needs to be installed on the server where Process Scheduler is going to run financial reports from. And finally, we're going to look at running Process Scheduler, using Process Scheduler to run some extender scripts. And we'll look at this schedule called Daily Checks, which runs 3 extender scripts that do custom alerts around customer aging, OE, shipped orders, and PO that have been receipted. So let's look at the detail there. The action is to run an extender script, and that requires extender to be configured in the database that you're going to run it for. Choose the company and select the script. And the scripts are included there have been activated in that company in extender under scripts. So the first one is check IC quantities. Next one is check GL account distribution. So we're saying, rather, the next one is AR customer aging. So if the total outstanding balance is greater than the customer's credit limit, or if the aging period 1 to 4 have a balance greater than 0, we put the customer on hold and send an email to the nominated email address. All that logic is happening in the script. All Process Scheduler is doing is running this at a particular time. So if we schedule this daily checks in Process Scheduler to run every day at 5 a.m. By the time I come to work in the morning, I will have a list of customers that are over their credit limit that have been might have been put on hold. If I run this one, I will have a notification that some large amounts for certain distribution accounts have been entered with a link to the batch number. And when you're writing these sort of scripts, you should make sure that the script actually return a status and an error message so that it can be displayed here in the last status in the number of errors, the log be viewed from here, and also do different actions whether there's an error or a success from the script. So what we have covered so far is how to activate and configure Process Scheduler. We've looked in detail at setting up a data integrity schedule, including how to set it up in Task Scheduler. We've looked at various examples of other schedules, level 1, 2, and 3, and we've looked at how to refresh some reports using Orchid modules and how to run some custom alerts and tasks using extender script. If you have any other information on Process Scheduler or on Orchid modules, go to our website www.orchid.systems. Thank you for your time.